focus on why it is you're creating the content and what the consumer thinks about it and how they engage with it and how they receive it. I'm recording this right now late on a Saturday. The family's asleep, and I've been thinking about putting some content together around this topic for a few days now as we kind of approach the end of the year, end of 21 and into 2022. So family went to bed early on a Saturday night. Everyone's wiped. And I'm just sitting there and thinking this is a great time to get some content on record for you guys. And if I can do it now, hopefully I can get it to you for Sunday night or at least early on Monday. So what this podcast episode's about, what this video's about, is what I want to focus on and what I encourage many of you to focus on as you head into the first 3 months and 6 months of 2022 as it relates to marketing. And that is intent. Always focusing on the intention of what it is you're doing, the intention of the marketing activity, the intention of the content, the intention of whatever it is that you're trying to put out into the world or put in front of your prospects or your current clients or consumers or whatever, however you label them. What's the intention? What's the goal? And why I'm going there with intent is because I think kind of the word content and content in general has just been beaten to death. If you haven't jumped on the idea that content is important yet, if you don't recognize that content is what delivers the attention to your business at this stage in the game, if you're not bought in on content, then this episode's not for you. You should probably listen to some of the prior ones or take a look at some of the other content I've put out. Content on content. But because if you haven't bought in on content at this point, like you're 18, like you're back, you're behind, you're 18 months behind. So I don't want to sit here and focus on content. What I want to do is focus on why it is you're creating the content and what the consumer thinks about it and how they engage with it and how they receive it. I think that's the big one. I think what has happened is we've said content for the last 18 months, us marketers and many others, we've kind of preached content to the point of like ad nauseum, and everyone now is like, all right, yeah, we're doing enough. We've got our act together. We're putting out, 5 to 10 pieces of content a week. We're doing our thing and we're getting our stuff out there. The problem is now there's so much content being put out into the world that it's highly ignorable. And on top of that, like I could go down a tangent on creating consumable content and creative content, which, we can do at a different time, or I've done in the past. We could do that in a different episode. But what I want to focus on is, why are you creating the content? Like, what do you hope your audience does with it? How do you hope they receive it? What's the goal? Are you putting out a piece of content just to get your name out? Are you putting out a piece of content just as branding, like just to kind of be out there? And if you are doing that, if that's your reason, just to be out there and just to be active, I would urge you to be careful, because what that can do is lead to ignorability. We're hardwired at this stage in the game, at this stage in just media consumption, to almost flag and trigger things as, put that in the consumable folder. I would like to consume more of that in the future, or that is highly ignorable. I would like to ignore that in the future. And what we do is we subconsciously will put a brand or a person or whatever in either one of those categories, or maybe a category in the middle. You might have a maybe category, but you scroll through Instagram, you scroll through Facebook, you scroll through Twitter, you scroll through LinkedIn, and you come across brands and people that you've categorized already. And you see them put something out, you've either categorized them as consumable or highly ignorable. And that is what I would caution you on with intent if you were just putting out content just to be present. So this is a little different than what I've talked about 16 to 18 months ago. 18, even probably as early as 12 months ago, I talked a lot about you just need to get your ass out of the chair and do something. Your brand, your company, your business needs to be present. in the digital world that we all live in, and we need to see it every day. Well, now I'm actually saying, not only do we need to see it every day, but you have to bring it. You have to have a reason for being in the streets. You have to have a reason for being, I say the streets, I mean like digital media. You have to have a reason for being out there. If your reason is just to slap your name in front of me, you're going to get categorized as highly ignorable because you bring no value to what it is I'm doing, which is scrolling. So that's the thing I would, category 1, we create content just to be present. Okay. I would urge you to make sure that your intent with that is dialed in and you are at least being creative enough to bring value to the consumer through your presentation. So if your goal is just to be present, fine. Make sure that your you're bringing it with creativity so that people don't label it as ignorable. People at least leave it in the consumable bucket. Next, that is one that I run into with a lot of prospects and clients, but generally prospects before we engage in working together, is we're putting out a lot of content. Okay, and people are putting out 5 to 8 to 12 pieces of content a week from their brand, which is great. I applaud them for that. Excuse me, take a sip here. It is a Saturday night. I've got a vodka soda going here. Trying to watch the carb intake or the sugar intake in the new year, and at least for the month of January, so the red wine's been put on pause. If your goal is to put out content that, or where was I was going with this is I work with a lot of prospects, or talk to a lot of prospects and work with clients that are saying, yeah, we do put out a lot of content. We put out a shitload of stuff. Take a look, and I'll go and look at it, and it's commercial content. So commercial content is sales content. You're asking or presenting your audience with a pitch, essentially, a product, a sale. Come see me for this. We offer this. We have that. We do this. We are better than X, Y, and Z because. All your traditional standard sales marketing activity, all your traditional standard corporate marketing activity, and I say corporate, that's all been mimicked downhill into the individual level. That's what I see on the secondary level of, yeah, we're creating a ton of content, and then I look at it and I'm like, your intent is completely off. This is all ignorable. All of it. Everything you're putting out is ignorable content. So you've been categorized, itemized, and whatever into the highly ignorable bucket. Everyone that you want to be in front of views your content as highly ignorable. Yeah, great. It's professional. You guys have a terrific designer or a team of designers, or you work with someone who designs awesome content. It's all commercial content. It's all sales content that's only in the best interest of you, the entity, the brand, the person, whoever is at the end of it, hoping to bring in the business. It's all in their best interest. And because of that, it's highly ignorable. So when I talk about intent with your commercial content, intent with your branded sales content, is off, and that's a huge one to consider as well. I'm going to take a quick pause here because I can hear my dog needs to go out, and I don't want her barking to wake everybody up. All right, guys, thanks for being patient with me. So those who don't know, I'm in the Philly suburbs here. It friggin' poured all night tonight, and I just had to take the dog out, and man, it is soaked out there. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me. Not that you give two shits about that, but thought I would share it. So just let's put a bow on this as we talk about the content and the intention in which you're sharing and creating content. We talked about putting out kind of ignorable content, right? Casual content, I'll call it. Let's name it that. That's a good one. We talked about casual content that you're putting out to check a box. We're out there, we're doing it, we're putting out our stuff, we're getting our name out there. And why that can have ill effects, adverse effects. Then we talked about putting out commercial content, sales content, which in my opinion is actually much worse because it just turns people off altogether. But the irony of that is that's how the majority of the industry and the majority of the job, the function of marketers has been trained, is to put stuff like that out. So casual content, be weary of it. Commercial content, stop doing it. And I think the last thing that I'll leave you with is, you might be asking, all right, so what kind of content should we put out? You need to have the intention conversation in your head as the business leader, as the marketer, whoever's in charge of framing the marketing activity around your business needs to be brainstorming with the team or as an individual. However, what is the intention of what we're attempting to do here? Does this align with our business? Yes. Does this provide the audience some sort of value? Do they care? Do they want to consume it? These are the questions that need to be had before you put that content out. Otherwise, that content is highly likely to be highly ignorable. Because if there's not intention that benefits the audience, okay, so that's a key word there. If the intention does not benefit the audience, then it's selfish for you, the business owner and operator entity, and it's highly likely that it'll be ignorable. So what kind of content should we be putting out? Content that, one, stops people from scrolling, so the creativity needs to be there, or there needs to be some sort of value present in literally half a second or a second that the audience can grab onto until you build at least that brand that people will stop when they see your name, when they see your brand, they'll stop and give you a look. So creativity is one that I would focus on. Is it creative enough to stop the scroll? Does it add value? Does the viewer want to read it? Does the viewer want to watch it? Does the viewer want to consume it? Does it make sense, and is it in line with the business that you're running? I see a lot of that on the smaller scale level. I see a lot of content, kind of cowboy content, like cowboy marketing. Like, this doesn't really make sense with what it is you're doing. This is not necessarily in line with what I thought your business was about. And so some of that stuff needs to be considered. I also think there needs to be a giant consideration for where you're putting where your marketing is going, the direction. Like, I think people need to consider that Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, the website, YouTube, those are, what did I name? 7? Those platforms are all different restaurants. They're all different restaurants in your hometown. And they all serve different fare and all have a different clientele, or at least a different atmosphere. One of them has white tablecloths and is a steakhouse. The other one is a loud American bistro. One of them serves seafood. One is a Thai restaurant. One is, a pizzeria, right? So you're not going to go into each of those restaurants dressed the same. You're not going to go into those with the same tone and tenor in your voice and attitude. You're not going to go into those restaurants expecting the same mood and atmosphere and clientele and patron. So that's a big one that needs to be considered by the entire industry. Is you create one piece of content and then people think they can spread it out across 6 platforms. No, the intention needs to be there you can mix and match that. Maybe one piece of content could fit a couple of the platforms, but it doesn't fit all 7, all 6. It certainly doesn't. And that's the intention there, that's another big one. So we're getting into the weeds here, but I think as we sit back and we enter 2022 and everyone's talking about goals and everyone's talking about how they want to change their business and what they want to do and what their big focuses are, I've been thinking a lot about mine, and mine is intention. Create content with intent. The intention of this content, the intention of this podcast, this video, however you're consuming it, however I break it up and give it to you, is to educate you on marketing. The intention is to show you that I know what I'm talking about and I'm thinking through this stuff. The intention is not to sell you on working with Corey Keating and Marketers Company. That's a byproduct of me showing you that I know what I'm doing, hopefully, down the road. But the goal of me putting this out is not to, like, this is the funniest thing. Like, you go back to thinking about working with certain people and certain salespeople, and it's like, well, what do we get from it? What's the ROI? What's the KPI of that podcast that you're putting together, or those videos that you put on YouTube? What's the point? I haven't seen revenue come from those. Well, here's the answer to that. If people are watching the content I'm putting out, you're putting out, and we say enough of the right things over time, eventually that person either needs marketing help or they run into someone who needs marketing help, and then they make that recommendation. And you never know that came from them watching 16 of those videos, listening to 11 of those podcasts. So what I'm doing is marketing through intention of showing you that I know what I'm talking about. And what I encourage many of you to do is the same. When you're putting out the content into the world, and I'm working with several clients, and I'll talk with prospects about this too, but like when you're putting content out, and the point is for them to show their audience that they know what they're talking about, that they know what they're doing. And a lot of times I'll hear back like, we don't feel super comfortable, kind of talking about ourselves like that. Or, we want to make sure they know we have this large cap value fund. Or we want to make sure that they know that we're lower cost than, so-and-so and so-and-so. And my reaction to them is, why don't we make sure that they know you offer and are a client that they may want to work with first, and they'll dig in and do some of their due diligence. And I'm sure, the basis points thing is going to work itself out in the end. And I'm sure they're going to find out that you sell a large cap value. And I'm sure they're going to find out that you've been in business and have, 87 cumulative years of experience. I'm sure they're going to find that out. But first, why don't we show them who you are, what you're about, and what they could be working with. So that's what I think about. And that's why I think creating content with intent is so important. So think about the end user. Think about how people are going to consume what it is you're putting out into the world. Have that conversation first before you create it, before you sit down and say, we just need to have something out. Slapping everyone in this business is navy blue. Slapping a navy blue banner down, putting a logo on the bottom right, and something about your fund being, the number one fund over the last 3 quarters isn't thumb stopping content. That's not going to stop anyone in the scroll. It's an advertisement. I think what people would rather see is who you're about, what you're about, what's the team about, what you guys do, what value you can bring to them, what value you can bring to the client, how you can make the advisor look better, how you can make the clients feel more comfortable. Show some of the human stuff, right? And then they're going to find out that your fund was a top fund over the last 3 quarters. They're going to find out you've got this whole bag full of 5-star funds. They're going to find out that you have 222 households that love working with you. They're going to find that stuff out. But first, you've got to give them a reason to look a little deeper. So, happy 2022. Intent. Put a note on your desktop. Put a note wherever it is that if you impact marketing at all, just put a note somewhere that says create with intent, share with intent. What's the intention of what we're doing? Because I think that is what the next era, the next chapter is going to be about. If you're not creating content right now, if you haven't got on the content game, if you haven't accepted that content is king, like at this stage, like forget it. We need to be creating content. So the next stage is creating content with intent. What is the intention of the content we're creating? Think that through. Cheers, guys. I'm glad I could join you tonight. late on a Saturday. Happy 22.